one of JD Talks. Today's topic is Brentford FC. I've got the boys.
Henry, man.
That wasn't me. I didn't do
Why?
that. I
was actually fucking getting into it there, and you.
That's what I mean. We actually got started. Why did we start laughing?
Oh, Henry, man.
I didn't.
All right, lads and ladies, welcome to JD Talks. This is episode 1. Topic today is Brentford Football Club. I've got the boys with me. Henry Brown, Alen Musanovic, and Adlane Chelly. How we doing, boys?
Not bad.
Yeah, all good. All
Not
good,
bad.
man.
Good to have you on. First episode. How can we not start with Brentford?
Come on.
No, perfect topic to start off, especially with you, innit?
How can we not?
We're doing all right this season, aren't we? We're doing all right.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not really talking about promotion yet. Wait till the end. We know what happened last season. Well, I don't really want to talk about it, but a few topics today. We're going to talk about first Brentford game, best Brentford memory, and like we said at the start, this season and upcoming season, how you think we're going to do. First one, as I said, first Brentford game. Henry, I'll start with you. What was it? Where was it? Who was it with?
Well, it was Brentford versus Bradford. It was about 2006. We drew 1-1. We drew 1-1. We went 1-0 down. I think like within 10 minutes or something. And then we got an equaliser just before half time. If I remember rightly, it was like Lloyd Owusu. He scored, and we absolutely battered them. Like, we should have beaten them. We drew, as I said, 1-1. But I went with my mum took me, and I'll never forget. We stood up at like the top right of the Braemere Road stand, and like for me, like I would have been about 7 or something. And I was just a proper football fanatic at that age. Like I literally lived and breathed football. And I remember my mum taking me, and it was literally probably the best day of my life, because I'll never forget, like there was a guy up top for Bradford City, and he was bald. Like he was bald. And
we all like one of the old
boys. One of the old boys in front of us was like, oh yeah, like, you know, he was like to the defender or something, to our defender, like, oh, go on, just kick the bald one. And I was like, yeah, go on, kick the bald one. And I remember my mum was like, oh, don't say things like that. And like the old boy turned around and he was like, oh, leave him, he's allowed to do what he wants at football. And I remember, like, do you know what I mean? I just felt like a proper like an community. And after that, like, you know, I kept begging my mum to go pretty much every Saturday, and it all just went from there, really.
When Saturday comes, they say, when Saturday comes. Alan, what was your first?
Adlane or Alen?
Alan, what was your first song?
So for me was in 2013. So January 2013, if I'm correct. And yeah, so I was in year 9, and obviously, yeah, at the time, like, just like Henry was saying, like, between most of us at that age, like, we're football fanatics and stuff. Like, that's the only sport I knew, pretty much. That's the only sport I watched. And yeah, the first game I went to was Tranmere Rovers at home. So obviously I actually went with Henry. I went with George Harsini, so a friend from secondary school and sixth form, and my friend to this day. And yeah, we went with one more person as well, but I can't quite remember who it was. But yeah, like, for me, the memory was sick as well, because it was literally like one of the earliest football matches I ever went to and stuff. So terraced as well. So for those of you that don't know, like, terracing is obviously like the standing area in a football match that hasn't got seats and stuff. So yeah, it was cool to be like with loads of people of different ages and stuff, and like adults, you know, like swearing, football chants, like, you know, oh, West London and stuff like that. Like, it was just funny, it was banter. And like, yeah, the next thing you know, I started coming to the next game, and then the next game, and then obviously fast forward 2 years, I got my first season ticket. And then yeah, I think just like Henry was saying, like, I got hooked on it, James, if you know what I mean. Like, tickets were a £5. Obviously I live in Acton, so literally took like half an hour to get to the ground and stuff. So yeah, good memories, man.
That Tranmere game, that wasn't Snowball Gate, was it?
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
was the
you're right.
snowball match. Yeah.
Oh no! Oh no!
Yeah.
There will always be proof
yeah.
that we did that. Don't worry. There will always be proof.
Yeah.
BBC Sport Twitter.
Always.
Do you remember that one?
I remember that.
Of course.
There's been a delay to the second half because the Tranmere goalkeeper's getting pelted with snowballs.
Yeah, the exact word was pelted as well. Yeah.
I wonder who that is.
I remember Uwe Rosner just coming onto the pitch and just screaming at us like, "Stop!" And I was just like,
Sorry, sorry.
"It wasn't me."
Going back to just quickly, Henry, with what you said, I was laughing actually when you said about the baldy. Going back to just like, and also with what Alan said with the terracing, all I can remember was when we used to go on the right side of Ealing Road, you had that fella on the bit to the left of us, and that he just used to abuse every second of goalkeepers that used to come down our end. I can't say some of them because we won't get racist, but
What
one of them got
the guy who used to say you donkey? That guy.
yeah, but someone else who used to come, some of the other stuff used to come out. I won't repeat, but Jesus Christ. Like some of that stuff, that's just what you love about going to the football. I actually watched a TikTok today. It was Russell Howard, and he was saying like the first time you ever go to the football, like, you know, your dad lets you say a swear word and stuff like that. And what Henry said there, like, that's what, you know, that's
Yeah,
what
literally. Like, I think that's the thing as well. Like, it shows quite as, I don't know what the sort of word would be, but it shows how much, you know, you really sort of take it in, because it's like, I remember going to obviously the Tranmere game with Alen, and I remember obviously, you know, the snowball incident. But other than that, because it wasn't my first game, I don't really remember much. I think like we lost or something. I don't remember.
2-1.
And you know, there's loads of other games like that, you know, since then and probably before then, that I don't really remember too much. But
No,
just like Alan, because it's our first game, it's like you remember, like I remember my, you know, with the ball, you know, with the ball player and, you know, the old boy sitting in front of us and what he said and everything, you know, I remember it as if that was sort of yesterday, because it's like, you know, I took all of that in so much that it's like, it is one of them ones that I'll never forget that day. Like, and it's the same with Alan with his man, you know, his first game, probably the same with you and probably the same with Adlane. Like, you don't forget that first game, and it's what makes you keep coming back.
That's it.
So Adlane, what about you? First game?
So my first game was a replay against Luton Town in 2007. So obviously it wasn't a good game for us. We lost 2-0. I think we had 2 shots, none of which were on target. So it's a pretty dire performance. But, you know, it was just more about the experience of walking into that football ground and just being like, obviously Griffin Park isn't the most outstanding football ground. It's not one of these top football grounds in the country, but you walk in and you're just like, wow, being so close to the pitch, obviously at that young age, again, I'm like 6-7 years old, being that close, having the players literally like within your touch is just like blows you away as a young child. And actually that game, like I said, really poor performance. Don't really want to remember much because it's such a bad performance. But I think I was there with a couple of my friends, one of which I don't think I've ever seen him at a football game before because of all the chanting and the noises. He was like, yeah, I want to go home, I got a headache. So that was a bit
football?
you know, I don't know. But obviously I was there with Charles, my friend that I still go to football with now. Literally season tickets together, everything. It's just been with him throughout everything to do with Brentford, and I was there with him and his family, and it's more about the experience for me, that game, because of such a poor performance. We just, to have that experience, to be there, to be at Griffin Park, and you're just like, wow. And like Alan Henry said, it just welcomes you in. You're like, I feel a part of this family.
It feels a second home almost, doesn't it? I don't know what you boys think.
To sort of add to that as well, I think, again, it sort of just shows the sort of the club that it is, because if you look, we all went at fairly, like, especially us lot, we all went at fairly young ages, being sort of like 7 and that. And, you know, all right, my game, we did batter Bradford City, but we still didn't win. We drew 1-1. You know, in Alan's game we lost 2-1, and in Adlane's game we lost 2-0. It's just like it shows the impact that the club had on us, because at that age you find most people would go to the winning clubs. You know, everyone around us would go to like the likes of, you know, United, you know, Man United,
Oh, yeah.
Liverpool, you know, Chelsea. Whereas for us, because we experienced, you know, the other side of what it actually has to offer, other than just the winning side of it, you know, that's what really brought us into it. And I think that's why we still go.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, going to my one, I was actually quite lucky. I got Grimsby at home. I think we won 4-1, pretty sure it was. My granddad was the first one to take me. Didn't really know sort of any mates that supported Brentford, so he'd supported them since he was young, which was obviously a long time. And I just, you know, when you see a team win 4-1, you're like, oh, I've got to go and see them again. But no, I think going back to what Henry said, and you know, getting the feeling of when you're there and stuff like that. I think obviously at the moment we can't go, and it's such a shame. And obviously it was such a shame we never got to see, you know, the final ever game at Griffin Park live at the ground. But I think what Henry's saying there is football just gives you a lift, and football just gives you this feeling where, you know, you feel, you know, so like enthralled in it, and you feel like it gives you a boost. I mean, I don't know about you boys, but at the moment, and obviously we'll go to it in a bit, but every win we have at the moment, I sort of next day, all right, it's not the same. We're not going. We're not on you're not on the terraces. We're not having a beer at half time, stuff like that. But it just gives you a boost. I mean, Saturday's result was just brilliant. And again, I know we're going to go to that in a bit, but I completely agree with what you're saying. It's what football does. And I think for Brentford, almost like a religion. Like, you know, we're not,
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
I think that's what it is. And, you know, the fact that we can have something like that, like you boys said again, we're not always going to win, and we've not always seen the team win, but you stick by them because it's like a religion for me. So, no, listen, as I said, I was a bit luckier than you boys. I got to see a win, but like you said, you know, you stick by your club. So, yeah. But no, listen, like I said, Brentford is what we love, and you know, we're doing things right now, and we didn't used to, because you know that's why we were down in the bottom leagues, and we were going to games like Aldershot. I'll never forget one game. It was like early on when I used to support Brentford. It was Aldershot away in an FA Cup replay. Jesus Christ! First round.
I've been Aldershot as well. Yeah.
Jesus,
Literally.
that's probably the worst away day I've ever been on. There's been a few.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's been a few.
Yeah.
There's been a few, but I just remember getting in the ground, and I sat down with my granddad, and this fella hands me toilet roll, and I'm like, what? Why do I need that? He's like, well, what happens, mate? When it rains, you've got to wipe your seat. I was like, I know Griffin Park's not nice, but Jesus Christ, can't I have a stand over me all night? You just remember those little moments. Like, I just remember losing 1-0, walking back through the park. They had no headlights in the park, so the stewards were holding torches to get you back on the coach. Like, just little memories like that, you'll always remember. And I completely agree with, again, what Henry says. You'll always remember your first game. You might not remember, some, a game this season, but you'll always remember your first game. And I think that's a memory that you'll always be able to talk about. But no, listen, that's why we support Brentford. And, what you said, those first games you went to, that is such a huge part of why we support the club. So, no, listen, Brentford is in our hearts, isn't it, boys?
Yeah, 100%. Forever, like, forever. Like, through the bad times, and especially through the good times. Like, easy.
Definitely. So, next bit, best Brentford memory. I know, obviously, we're going to have loads. You've got to pick one, boys. Come on. What are we picking? Henry, come on.
That's the thing. I mean, like, easily, as you said, there could be so many.
There's so many.
I think for me, it's just because of everything that you sort of go through as being a Brentford fan. I think it has to be Middlesbrough away in the playoff final, just for the sole reason is just the whole sort of game, and the whole season as a whole basically fits into that game, because you know, as we sort of talked about, you know, like you just said, with sort of all the shot away and all things like that, you know, we came from some like grim places, like some proper bad places, you know, that we've been in some really bad situations. And, you know, we you know, that was really the time for me that as a club, we was really going into the right direction. And, you know, as I was sort of saying as well, you know, I will never forget for the last 15 minutes, each and every one of us fans that was there was just singing Brentford FC. And, you know, I think even at the time he was like 3-0 down as well, you know, on aggregate it was like 4-1. We was down and out. There was no chance, but literally every single one of us all felt the same thing of just complete and utter proudness. Because, you know, at the beginning of the season, we were like favourites to go down. And, you know, we smacked the likes of Leeds, all of these big clubs that came down to us, you know, Derby, all of them, you know, we turned all of them over and no one actually expected it. And it wasn't just, you know, as we've proven as well, it wasn't just a one-time thing. It wasn't just like a one-season wonder. You know, everyone, you know, you look at the likes of Wickham this season, they expected us to be exactly in their position. And, you know, we didn't do that. We got to the playoff semi-finals. Obviously, we wasn't ready to go up and it, you know, it was worked out for the best. But I would just never forget that day because for me, you know, at school, we used to get bullied for supporting Brentford. You know, people go, who's useful? You know,
That's
who's
a roast, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know, the guy over there, I support Chelsea. Oh, yeah, you know, you got all of the money, blah, blah, blah. Who do you support? Oh, I support Man United. Yeah, they're good, but I bet you've never been to a game. Who do you support? Oh, I support Brentford. Who?
Yeah.
Like, what? Yeah,
People
you know,
still say this to me at work. They're like, what league do they
to the
play in?
Championship. Oh, you know, what league's the Championship? Like, you know, I don't know anything below the Premier League. Like, and then, you know, at that stage, it's like, you know, it was a moment that it's like you could be proud of and be like, that's my club. Like, you know, in the last 15 minutes, actually being there and just singing Brentford FC for the last 15 minutes was, yeah, it was, I don't know, it's just, for me, it's the time that I just think of, wow, I literally was just sat there and just smiling, just so happy, right? Even though we was losing. So it's got to be that one.
No, you're right. We were top of the stand. It was probably freezing cold, as Middlesbrough would be, and yeah, it just 3-0 down. We just didn't care. We just kept going, and you know, that season, like you said, Henry, was never expected. You know, we signed people like Alex Pritchard.
I mean, as well, it was just like the togetherness of everyone as well. Like,
absolutely.
You know, we proved that us coming together got us further than, you know, it's just like in the real world as well, you know, working as a team can get you so much further than just working as an individual. And that was just like the players, it was just like the staff, it was just like us fans. You know, we all got behind them and they, you know, considering that at the time where we in the position we was, they probably gave us the best season that we've ever had, really, in compared to sort of like maybe the last season and maybe this season. I think that's probably the best season we've ever had.
No, I agree, mate. Because I think we were also at that age where we were, like Alen said, I think earlier, we were all football fanatics, but I think we had a bit more knowledge. We were going a bit more. We were seeing more stuff. And no, I completely agree, Henry, mate. Like that game just definitely just summed us up as a club. And I think if probably you were to start a timeline and you looked at that going to now, that's probably the road that we've been on. The togetherness, the success we've had, and you know, it shows how well run of a club we are. I mean, I was watching a video the other day of Watford fans. I mean, look, they've been a Premier League team for a good 5 years now, come down to the Championship, and they're complaining that, you know, they're drawing 0-0 against Coventry. It just shows how you can go from, you know, like Henry saying, losing 3-0 to Middlesbrough, seeing your hearts out, still loving the club, to now second in the Championship. If we win tomorrow, we go top. You know, can you just? It just shows, I think, that the success and the timeline that we've been on. It's just, I think it's crazy, and it's just nice to see that, you know, we're now being spoken about. Because again, I go to little things like, I remember talking to Alan at the weekend actually, and he said, I'm watching a highlight show, and I just thought to myself, when we used to watch the highlight show, we were always going to be the last game on.
Yeah.
Oh, where's Brentford? Last game on. You know, I'll fast forward this. We'll be in the last game on. And like now, we're the first game on or we're the second.
Always the feature game, yeah, the feature game every single time.
people
Never
want to
used
watch
to be
us.
like that.
Never. You know, like I said, I used to say, when a Brentford on, we'll probably be the last game. It was just always, it was a known thing. So no, you know, like I said, I completely agree, Henry. That was for me, that was the start. Don't get me wrong, we got promoted that season before, and that obviously helped. But I personally would say that was the start of the journey that we went on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
I think
the
like that's what I'm sort of
foundations.
trying to get at, like, as in the sense that, you know, that's when it sort of, you know, the realization sort of settled in that, you know, we are actually going somewhere. You know, obviously we got promoted from League One, you know, we got promoted from League Two, and you know, we settled very well, you know, pretty much instantly. I think, you know, the first season I think we just finished above the bottom, and then the second season we were quite comfortable, and then what, the third or the fourth season was when we went up, and then, you know, and then that's what I mean. You know, you could see the direction that we was going in, but it was still fairly sort of early days, and it was all sort of still, you know, it was still sort of trying to be implemented. And that's what I mean by, when we played that game, is when you realised what was actually happening and where we was actually going as a club.
Definitely. Alan, best memory. I said it to Henry. It's a difficult one. We all probably have loads, but what's your favourite?
Now, James, I knew, like, before we started the podcast, innit? I knew that you were gonna ask this, but literally,
It's a generic question, is it? I know it's an obvious question, but I think, you know, as I said, we're all gonna have loads. But you got to pick one. What is it?
Again, so yeah, for me, it's not, like I said, because of questions, like, difficult, because I've had so many good memories. For me, it's probably a collective memory. So again, literally what Henry's been talking about, the 2014-15 season for me was my best, like, overall memory of Brentford, because if anything, I remember that season the most from all the seasons I've watched Brentford, because obviously in 2013 I went to my first game, and then the 14-15 season, when we did well in the championship and we got to the playoffs, that was my first season ticket as well. I don't know if you guys remember. So yeah, so that was like the first time I was literally going to every single game with you lot. And obviously there's 23 games at home, and I went to 19 of the games. Yeah, the only games I missed were when I was abroad. Like, I think I was either in Poland or Serbia, as usual, my usual excuse. But yeah, those were literally the only games I missed. So I watched every single game at home, pretty much, apart from a few. I went to a few away games with you boys as well. I remember we went Watford. Watford was my first ever away game. So funny enough, you mentioned Watford, Biggie, because that was my first away game. And yeah, we went Brighton together, if you remember.
That was a good day.
Yeah,
That was a good
yeah,
game,
Henry James and George Gers. So, like, yeah, another mate from school. And yeah, like, I just remember we were like, yeah, we were young and stuff, and it was fun just going away from home, like, acting all sick and stuff. Like, oh yeah, like, you know what I'm trying to say. You know, when you go to an away game at a young age, yeah, try and give it large a few times and stuff. But yeah, that season was good as well. that season was just
never thought I was the top boy. You having a laugh, aren't you?
But yeah, so thingy, obviously, like I said, specific memory, I could give you literally loads, but that whole season was my best memory. And again, going back to what Henry said, we were beating teams week in, week out that were good, that were big. We beat Leeds, we beat Bournemouth, we beat Derby. We literally were beating these teams that were, like you were saying, they're the kind of obvious teams that Sky Sports would show, that would be spoken about the most on, like, the championship highlights and championship, like, articles and stuff. And we were beating these teams. And obviously, yeah, you know, we got to the playoff semi-final. We lost to Borough and in the second leg. And yeah,
we won't talk about playoffs, Alan. We won't talk about playoffs. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, it's just
playoffs don't go.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, 14-15 season.
No, I like it. It's you know,
enjoyed it
I
so
like
much.
That. Like, you know, I've said to you, pick one, but you've picked a whole season. I think, you know, I completely agree. That was probably the memory that and probably the memory that you'll think about so much and is your best, because it was it was, as a whole, something that, you know, you enjoyed so much. It wasn't like probably Henry's saying there. It wasn't just one game. It was a whole collective memory, which I quite like.
Yeah.
You know, like we said, when you're doing well, you can't complain. Adlane, best memory.
So for me, it'll have to be our first win against QPR. And it's not so much me individually and the feelings that I had on that day. It's more about seeing how Charles, my friend, and his family were reacting to it, because they've been Brentford supporters through everything, like through everything that happened with QPR and Brentford. His dad was there, and just to see how much it meant to him to win that game, and obviously to be with you guys there was, but I feel like it's that more sentimental feeling towards it, and knowing how much it meant to them, and then just seeing, like we were talking about earlier, the religion, the club, just seeing how close-knit and how much it does mean to people. So don't get me wrong, obviously them games, the seasons and the playoffs and all of that is just, it's a great experience to be a part of, but maybe for me as well, that season wasn't topped off because I didn't get to go to that playoff game. I had an exam, my GCSE PE exam that day, and the coaches were running sort of before the exam started, so I couldn't make it. And I feel like I don't have that same experience, even though I went to every home game that season. I didn't have that experience that Henry did, to go and be in that semi-final away from home and just really live that and sort of complete the season. And I feel like that's just that one part that was missing from that season, is that bit of completion, which I never got. And I just think QPR away was such a good experience to have. Being with you, yeah, I'm pretty much.
You guys always what we look forward to, innit? Henry's missed it.
Oh,
You've missed that game too much, H. I feel like.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, man. Whenever I don't turn up, we win. Like, I'm literally a bad omen. Like, I literally turned up when we went 2-0 up, and then in 2 minutes at the end of the game, they scored 2. I was like,
don't watch it on iFollow for fuck's sake, because we'll probably lose.
No, iFollow, I'm all right. I can watch it on that. I think. I mean, I don't know. I watched the home game. I've gone to all of the home games and we've won, but whenever I've gone to the away, we've never won.
I see. Also, I remember that game as well. James turning up late because he got a taxi or whatever time, and that was when the pyro went off at half time as well. We was like,
didn't I leave the tickets at home? I live around the corner.
Yeah, you started coming because you had my ticket as well. You started coming, and then you forgot it, so you had to go home and you got a late taxi, and then that was it. The pyro was off at half time in that little concourse, and you're just like, that's just what Brentford's about, you know?
Yeah. Which game are we talking about? The one where Romain Sawyer scored a banger?
Yeah.
Adlane's remember, Adlane's got the shirt on, Adlane, haven't you?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say. But yeah, Henry wasn't there. It was us three.
No,
I don't remember Henry being there.
Yeah, just got to keep reminding him he wasn't there, because when he's not been there, we won. So
that's what I mean. Like, I think that's literally all I need in my life now. It's just a win at Loftus Road. But I'm so scared to actually go, because when I go, we don't win. And it's just like, I'd rather see us win than me be there to see us win. So
yeah.
I think we'll have a vote. When we can go back in stadiums, I think we'll have a vote. If we feel like we're doing all right, then we'll let you come. But you know.
Yeah, but mate, we could literally be on like 100-game unbeaten run, and then I would turn up to QPR away and we'd just lose 4-0 or something. Like,
cheers, mate.
You know,
Thanks for that.
And the worst thing about it as well is, like, you know, even the last time I went, I think we lost like 3-2, and we went like 1-0 up as well. And I was like, yes, you know, this is going to be the day.
Yeah, that game when Alan Judge was playing as a number 9, wasn't he? It's false 9. That was questionable.
That first half was fun.
Yeah, that was questionable.
That was the one I'm talking about. Is the one where Neil Morphy scored, the first one.
Oh, big Neil! Don't get me started.
Okay.
Big Neil. And then we went like 1-0 up, and then they went like 3-1 up, and then Dalsgaard got the second.
Oh, I was actually on holiday. Yeah, it was like 3 goals within the space of 10 minutes or so, wasn't it?
Yeah, just hungry. Like.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Luckily, I missed that game. Actually, being on holiday, that was a good one to miss. Good trip to Leicester Road to miss.
I'm booking my holidays from now on to keep that away.
It's unlucky Henry didn't miss it, isn't it?
just that week, and that's it.
No. Listen, QPR away is always a good. It's always a good one. And like you said, to see the first win at QPR away, and like you said, with all the history and stuff like that, it's definitely a memory. I'll probably say myself. Again, I'm being a bit of a hypocrite here. I've got loads, but if I was to pick one, it'd probably be being mascot at Brentford. This was. I know the game was Southampton at home. Southampton had Ricky Lambert, Adam Lallana. It was just like we were never gonna, But to see what happened, when I was that young of an age, to see what happens firsthand, almost on a match day, to see the dressing room, to see things like that. I think at the moment we're not seeing that. We wish we could see that firsthand of how much of a team it is. I just look at Brentford now and I think we're such a team. We're not just. I think past seasons. I know I probably shouldn't say this, but last season we relied on BMW so much. It was
100%.
It was, and I know that sounds crazy that we're relying on 3 players, because some teams rely on one. You look at Tottenham, they rely on Kane, or they rely on Son, so that's 2 players. But we relied so much on BMW last season. I think that probably faulted us, and we expected them to turn up in that playoff final, and they didn't. Simple as that. Whereas this season, I just see every single player in that team turning up to every game. I haven't seen. On this unbeaten run, I haven't seen us have an off day. I haven't seen one player have an off day. I just haven't. And to see that as a team, and like I said, going back to that memory of when I was asked mascot, and you see the dressing room and you see what happens and you see that team spirit, I think it shows you that football's not just about, 11 good players. It's about building a team. It's about building an atmosphere. It's about these little things. I think people talk about football being such about individual ability. I don't think it is. It's all. I think a lot of football is played in the mind, and the fact that we have such a team spirit now, I think is just amazing. But no, to be mascot and to get a chance to kick a football around the first ever stadium I was taken to was amazing. Just was brilliant. So when I was just talking about obviously this season and how we're doing, let's go on to the next one. This season, boys, and the future seasons. We can't talk any bad about this season, can we? I mean, how good's it been?
I'm just, I'm just thinking about booking some European tours now. Spain, who fancies Spain, Italy, boys? Maybe a little Juventus away. Let's be honest.
I wouldn't say no.
I think, all right, I don't know about maybe Champions League, but I think you've got to look this season, and it's sort of as you just touched on, last season. I think individually we were probably better, and I think you even look at some players. I think maybe they may have been on a little bit better form, the likes of Mbeumo. But I think as you sort of touched on, together we're just we're it's like what Thomas Frank keeps talking about. We're more than just 11 players. Last season, Watkins and Mbeumo and Benrahma combined contributed to 60 of the goals that we scored out of the 78. When you have 3 players contributing that much, if they don't perform, which I feel like they, Mbeumo definitely stacked off at the end. When they don't perform, it's it leaves that question mark of, okay, who's going to sort of step up now? And it was, you had the likes of sometimes the Silva stepping up, but I mean, other than that, there wasn't really anyone else. I mean, Jensen was very up and down. Norgard defensively was very good, but offensively he was, he didn't really contribute to any much. Whereas, this season I think it is one of them ones. It reminds me so much, and I know a lot of people spoke about it when it happened as well. But again, the Doncaster season, where that penalty miss with the try, I still say it was the best thing to happen to us, and I still stick by that. And the following season, we didn't run away with the league because obviously we finished second. But other than us and Wolves, really, there wasn't anyone that came close to us. And you couldn't really expect us to compete with Wolves because of the financial situation and everything. But this season, it reminds me similar to that season, because you look at when we played Swansea, we absolutely played them off the park. But then when they played Norwich, they played Norwich off the park.
I think, yeah, no, definitely, mate. I think what you're probably getting at as well is with that, I think it's fate that penalty was missed. Was it fate that we didn't go up last season? Is it an identical season to what you're saying?
Yeah.
We didn't go up last season. We lost in the playoff final. Are we sort of, are we destined to go up automatically this season? I think
that's the thing as well. Obviously, like when you have that, you look at the likes of like Fulham. The problem with them, and this is why I feel like it's going to be a reoccurring problem. As much as I enjoy seeing them come down, they are, they do have quality in their team, but the problem with them is they come down, but then they go straight back up, so they don't really learn. Whereas with us, we have the season from last season where we suffered the defeat, we felt that pain, and now we've learned from it. And you look at this season, you look at the 20 games unbeaten. We've only lost 3 games this season. In total, we've only lost 3 games. Last season, by this point, we'd already lost 9. That's the difference already, because when you have that year to learn from it, as much as it would have been brilliant to have gone up last year. You have that season to now learn. So now, now we prepare ourselves even more. So this season, if we do it, I think we would have now a better chance of staying up than if we were still have gone up last season. Whereas the likes of Fulham, you look at them now, they're in the relegation zone again. They're probably potentially going to go down again. And it's just going to become a recurring pattern where, they're up, down. And until they get some sort of, consistency, it's not going to change.
I think also going to that just quickly, with I think you could go and look at other clubs. Look at Leeds, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I was literally going to say.
That season that they lost in that playoff semi-final, was it fate? Was it fate that they weren't going to go up that season? And look how well they've done this season. I know there was talk that they were going to go up and European football and stuff like that, but a lot of people still thought this jump to the Premier League is big. Are they going to be able to do it? And I think the fact that they didn't get over the line that season probably pushed them on more. And maybe, like Henry's saying, I think it pushed us on more to think, no, we're not going to go and do playoffs this season. We are going to go up automatically. Simple as that. We're not going to have the sort of bad luck or good luck side of playoffs, because that's what it is for me, a playoff. I know we've lost 9 in a row. We've never won. Sorry, is it 10 playoffs? But I think the team have thought this season we're not gonna let the playoffs decide our season. We're gonna let us in the normal season decide our fate. Simple as that. So no, I think fate is a huge thing in football.
I don't even think so. I don't think it is so much to do with fate, because I believe in it to an extent, but I don't. But I think it's also more to do with the fact that when you think of the squad that we have, it's very similar to Leeds and it's very similar to Fulham's. It's a very young squad. Individually, they're very good, but they're very young, so they are to an extent very inexperienced. When they get to the likes of playoff finals and playoffs as a whole, they're very inexperienced. So it's trying to find that balance to find what you need to get yourself over the line, as much as sort of be at your best, if that makes sense. And I think that's the thing why for us it will benefit us, because we have, we lost Watkins and Ben Rama, but other than that, we have a very similar squad to what we have. So they all have that playoff final defeat in the back of their mind, where if you are to be in the same situation, they will have a sort of a better understanding of this time what they can do better to get themselves across that line.
For sure. So, Alan, what do you reckon this season? How are we doing? What's going to go on? I know you've always got your things in the back of the mind. I always like talking to you about Brentford. You always got things in the back of your mind.
Yeah, trust. Again, not that I believe in jinxing things, but I think I've been much more humble this season. I've been very happy with our victories, but I don't want to make too much of a fuss about it. But yeah, again, coming back to what Henry said about last season, we haven't. Last season we relied on 3 players essentially, but this season, it's not. We're not. There's nothing to hide. We've actually got a better team this season, and again, you just got to thank our recruitment staff and stuff like that, because they've done wonders again. But this season, because I was saying this to you, James, the other day, this season, right? We go 1-0 down. Last season, we would have fucked around, and
I can't see us losing at the moment. I see what you mean.
Most likely we would have lost that game. And look at this season already. Like, within the last 2 months, we've been down to decent sides, I'd say. So we've been down to Cardiff, we've been down to Bristol City, we've been down to Middlesbrough. And in that period, they were all top half of the table. And honestly, you know what I'm trying to say? Last season, I just wouldn't see us getting past that. Or in other seasons, I've been supporting Brentford and watching us home and away. I wouldn't have seen us win those games. But this season, I think the confidence is there, because you know what happened last season towards the end of the season, with games like Stoke City and Barnsley, for example, where unfortunately we didn't get results. That's the difference. This season, we go 1-0 down. I can see our players pulling it out of the bag and stuff. But yeah, in terms of what do I think where we will finish, I just don't want to. I don't want to say it because
I'm the exact same.
Say it.
I'm the exact
Say it.
same.
we're hard to beat. I think the thing we can all agree on, and people that follow the championship, they can see that we're very, very hard to beat. And our defense is slightly better. It's not quite Swansea City, but our defense is very good this season. And again, our attack, I mean, we're the top scorers in the league again so far. How can we let go of Benrahma and Watkins, who are doing well in the Premier League, and then we replace them with obviously Ivan Toney and mainly him, and a good central midfielder and Vitaliano, and we're still doing good. It's just amazing to see. But yeah, I think obviously not to jinx it, but I think top 6 would pretty much be confirmed with us. I can't see us not being outside of the top 6. But as for automatics, I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut.
We're losing our next 5 games.
He said it now, isn't it? He said it. He's only gone and fucking said it now, isn't he?
That's it.
No, listen, I completely agree with you. I think one thing, and again, it just shows the ups and downs that football can bring. Last season, when you listen to little things that Thomas Frank said, we were all making stupid jokes like, "Oh, he's just a Danish PE teacher" and stuff like that. Whereas this season, it's the truth, isn't it? But this season he says one word that for me I love, and that's character. We've showed so much character this season, and for me, for a young team who are not, you're not going to get many football teams. I don't think you can find a football team these days that have got players that are going to show character because they love the team. And I think we do have players that love the team, but I think what I'm trying to get onto is we don't have players that support the team. We don't have players that love Brentford. They're not like us, but we have characters, and we have. Listen, parts of me hates what Tony does. Parts of me love what he does, but he's a character, and I think to see that and to see that he's there, pushing the team on. People could turn around and say, "Well, why doesn't Tony be captain? Does he need to be? Do we want him there, not as captain, but as a leader, as a voice, as as someone that's going to spur on the team?" I just think character has been 10 times better than it was last season. I think last season was amazing, and I think the character we showed to go on that unbeaten run towards the end of the season, I think character has been a huge part of the season. And like I said, I've completely disagreed with some of the things that Thomas Frank has said, but I think he repeats it, and people might say, "Oh, he's boring, he's saying the same thing." But they talk about repetition, and I think the fact that he repeats it so much to say we have so much character, I think is something that is so vital in a team, and I think we showed that this season.
100%.
Say as well, just to add, like one of the things that I picked up on as well is last season when we went behind, we only came back in 2 of our games, and that was obviously the Barnsley game away and the Charlton game at home at the end of the season. This season already, from what I can think, I mean, I don't think there's been many times that we have been up behind. I think there's only probably been 3 times that we've lost, and then, but like our last 4 games or something already, you know, you think about Middlesbrough, that's a game going behind easily last season. We would have lost. See you later.
Yeah.
Might as well write that game off. Again, the Bournemouth game at home, that's another one going behind. You know, considering how strong they are, potentially maybe we would have come back from previous seasons, but it would have been difficult. Cardiff City, another one, easily would have written that off. Going 1-0 down, again came back and won. Bristol City as well. Like the 4 games there in the space of what was that, 5 games that we've played recently, and already we've come back every time and won. And I think that shows the difference between this season and last season.
Definitely, mate. No, definitely. Adlane, what do you reckon? How are we doing?
I mean, it's hard to say that we're not doing exceptionally well this season. There have been things, obviously, that we've needed to sort out, and I feel as if we are sorting it out. And one big one is obviously the signing of Winston Reid. The fact that he's come in, we needed a centre-back. Everyone at the club knew we needed a centre-back, right? And to bring in someone of that calibre, that experience, to bring him in to little old Brentford, as so many people would say, shows just how far we have actually come. And I think I give a lot of credit to Thomas Frank. I mean, he has had a lot of stick in the past, and we've all given it to him. Obviously, his passion is the heat of the moment, but again, you going back to that repetition, and that's what he's shown, not just in what he's saying, but look at the team he picks and the formation he was picking. We were losing games. We were losing games badly and playing terribly. When we were playing 5 at the back, we had no creative spark going forward, but he kept that team, and eventually that season it came through. And then last season he tried to start with it. It didn't work, but he still played with it for a good few games. And then he decided, okay, let's change this up. And he changed it up. And then throughout the rest of the season, we kept that consistency and we kept that team, that shape. And that's what the club has been so good at doing, is really building players into their mold and what they want and the philosophy that we have at the club. So, yeah, I mean, going forwards, I think it's going back to the fate, like Henry was saying. I mean, this season would have been horrible if we were in the Premier League and we've only been to go and watch 1 game. You know, Brentford being in the Premier League for the first time and only going to go watch 1 game this season, which luckily I've been able to do, go and watch that 1 championship game, which again wasn't the best game. But, you know, people will always say to me, oh, how do you feel not going up, this, that, losing to your rivals? And I actually think it was a blessing in disguise. Obviously, losing that game is hurtful. It's against Fulham in the playoff final. You're that close to it, 1 step. But to not go up has been a blessing, because we've got to, as you said, we've got to build on last season. Selling Ben Rama and Watkins and not having to spend an awful lot of that money in this season and still being in such a good position is amazing. And that is what I trust in Brentford going forward. Whenever we do go up, if we go up, I think we're going to be a very good, consistent side, just because of the way that the club is manufactured and the club's philosophy in terms of buying cheap, selling on, and having that profit. And really look at players, Vitaly Yanel, who the hell was he before he came to the club? And now you look at him, he stepped in for arguably the best, most consistent player last season in Christian Norgard, and he stepped in the last few games and he's been amazing. Started the comeback again, not started it, but got that crucial goal against Middlesbrough. And yeah, just the character and the club is unbelievable. A really good example is the other day, look at David Raya. Had an awful, he's not, to be honest, he's not been too confident in terms of the last few games. There's been a few goals from crosses and corners, and he's not been able to deal with it. But he's still come out. He's come out against Middlesbrough, completely flapped at it, missed it, scored an own goal, but then goes on to win us the game, making the saves that he did against Middlesbrough. And then him coming out and talking after the game, and he's like, look, even though I've had that error, I still need to be there for the team. And having that character and being that leader within the team is, you can't fault him for that. So many players would have conceded that, dropped their head, and you look at, for a prime example, as Kepa. Look, he's made how many mistakes, been left out of the side, and you could see that his morale is down and his head is just, it's down all the time. So, you know, just having that character in the club, I really think going forward is something special. Obviously, I don't want to say too much and I don't want to get too overexcited, but I definitely do think that it's something special going on at Brentford.
And Henry just wants us all to say it, doesn't he? Look at him. Look. He just wants us all to say it.
But yeah,
what do you want us to do, Henry? What do you want us to say?
It's the truth. It's the truth.
We are Premier League. Nah, not yet. Not yet.
It's early doors.
The main factor is.
What I add though quickly as well is I think like a massive like shout out actually to those like I mean I'll put my hand up right now, and I, you know, especially after last season, I said I personally think Frank should have gone, because I think with the team that we had last season, I still do. I think we should have gone up, but as I said, you know, I think now it was a blessing in disguise, and I think that's the thing. You know, there was a lot of people that was out there that was out, especially at the start of the season, when we didn't really pick up a massive like. We didn't start off as well as everyone expects us to. And I think the thing that people never thought is Thomas Frank's very similar to like a Brentford signing. But the only difference is he's a manager. And the problem with that is he's always on the front line, because with a player, you know, you look at Morpie when he came in, you know, people said that he couldn't even lace Bibe's boots because they generally thought he was not going to be good enough. The same with Watkins last season. They said, oh, you know, Morpie scored 25 goals. How's Watkins going to do that? They've all stepped up, and it's the same with Frank as well. You know, he stepped up in the sense that it's difficult for him because he's constantly on the front line, because he's the manager. So when results don't go our way, everyone looks at Frank and says, okay, hang on a second, what's going on? You know, whereas Benham stuck by him, and now he is showing how good of a manager he is. You know, he's learned from his mistakes. You know, as Adlane touched on, last season he started with a back five. He realised it wasn't working. He did change it. This season, you know, it was a couple of times when we played Stoke, he tried it. But as he said, we didn't have the midfielders to do a 4-3-3. So that's why he done a back five. It didn't work. We haven't seen it again. And since that, all we've done is just constantly get better. And I think that is, you know, obviously we say how well run the club is, but Frank has like a massive impact on that. And I think he is owed like a massive amount of credit, which he doesn't.
Huge, mate. I think just going on to that, I was talking actually to someone yesterday, and one thing for me in football, and probably the sports industry, is probably the one industry in the world where the manager gets sacked before the workers. I mean, the manager's always going to get sacked before the players. But you think of any other job in the world where a manager's going to get sacked before his workers. I can't think of one. I honestly can't. So I completely agree. Managers take the forefront of everything. Is it all a manager's fault? For me, no. He's got 11 players out on the field. They're not doing it for him. Is that his fault? Might be bits of his fault. But, you know, why aren't half of them 11 players getting sacked if they're not doing the job? So I completely agree. I think managers take the forefront, and that's just because they're the ones, they're the face. They're the ones that are, you know, they probably put themselves on the line. Absolutely.
You know, you look at Watford.
Exactly.
Watford, a prime example. You know, look at Troy Deeney and all of that from what you hear. You know, they're absolutely ruining the club inside, but the managers are the ones getting sacked for it. Like, it makes no sense, whereas we don't run like that. And we stick by Frank. And, you know, with players, 9 times out of 10, we don't really buy a bad egg. You know, so they always sort of fit in, but they just need time to develop. Like, it's that simple. And that's why it works with us, because we stick by it, and it, you know, we help in ways that need to be, you know, to be helped to develop. And that's why, you know, we reap the rewards because of it.
I was listening to something very, very interesting earlier on today, actually, and it was Jamie Carragher talking about Ollie Watkins in the Premier League, him and Calvert-Lewin, and it just reminded me a lot of Ivan Toney this season. The fact that okay, he has scored a load of goals. He scored a load of goals last season, but if he had come in and was only on 10 goals at this point in the season, but I'm pretty sure we still would have been like, wow, this player is a very good player, because even when he didn't score for what, 6, 7 games, the guys link up play, the passion, the pressing is just all brilliant. And I saw it in the first few games I was watching on TV. There were some balls that were coming into his head, and he was putting it perfectly into the path of some of the players. And I'm like, this guy is something different. And to have that, often you look at a player and you're like, how many goals has he scored this season? And you think, okay, if he scored 1 goal in 3 goals in 2, 3 games, he's like, wow, he's going to be a good striker. But then if he hasn't scored any goals, but he's doing everything else right, doing them unselfish runs into the channels, linking up the play, starting the press, initiating the press, all of them things which Tony has. And that's something that the club looks for. The wingers we had, Godos and Canos, at the beginning of the season, just they weren't performing, but we were still getting the results. And okay, that was largely part to Ivan Toney scoring the goals, but it's about Frank having that trust in the players and the other abilities that they do have. And obviously we understand a bit about football, but we don't really appreciate the things that the players do off the ball, the runs that they make, the space that they create. And in having that, that's what makes the team click. And that's what is so special about Brentford as a recruitment. No one in the world can disagree with that the recruitment at the club is brilliant. You look at some of the players come through. I'm pretty sure every position on the pitch, we can say we have a good backup for that position. And again, you look at last season, you look at Brian Mbeumo, possibly one of the best players, apart from Watkins and Benrahma last season, one of the best players. And this season, he's been frozen out of the side by Canos and Fosu, which I remember back end of last season, people wanting Canos to go. They loved him because of the passion, the love he has for the club, but he just wasn't performing. And then for him to step up this season how he has, it's just been amazing. It shows the depth and quality that we do have in the squad.
Definitely. I think his confidence has rocketed. Two things I want to say. One, I want to say what Adlane's saying. I think regarding the recruitment, I think if you look at football and you look at any club in the world, probably there's probably one club for me in the world that are not a selling club, and that's Man City, just purely because of the money. But for me, every club in the world is a selling club. But we deal with it with our recruitment so well. We bring in these gems like Ivan Toney. All right, we're paying more money for them now because they know that, that we're that sort of club. But I just think we're always going to be a selling club, and people didn't like it. People say, "Oh, well, you're going to get rid of your best player," and then, But I think we've shown it now. We're always going to recruit well, and we're always going to bring in, replacements that the club believe in. And the club believe, all right, they might not hit the ground running, but they're gonna perform, and they're gonna hit the level that they think they can. So I think the way we've recruited is just unbelievable. With what Adlane's saying, I think Ivan Toney's just been exceptional this season. There's no way I think any of us thought he was going to come in, and what I looked at the other day, he's projected 35 goals this season. That is just for me, just unbelievable. Just crazy. But
what I would want to add though as well, sorry, just quickly, I think as well, again, it sort of touches on the togetherness, because you look at Canos for prime example. I said at the beginning of the season, and I said this to you, James, in my personal opinion, I felt to be a top 6 side, especially a top 2 side, I didn't think Canos was the player. If you wanted to be a top 10 side, he's the man, 100%. Because he was very, he had the passion, but he was very inconsistent. And I didn't, to be a top 2 side, you can't have a winger like that. But, you look at the way he has stepped up. You look at the way that all of the players around him have stepped up, but then you also look at when a lot of these players move on. It never, for a lot of them, it never worked. You know, you look at the likes of Hogan, Gray. You know, okay, I mean, Tarkowski, he's done well, but I mean, you know, there's also Konza, and I'd say Watkins at the moment. But even Ben Rama, you know, people said he was probably one of the best players that, you know, have been in the Brentford shirt. He hasn't really stepped up for West Ham at the moment. He showed glimpses of it, but he still hasn't stepped up at the moment, and he hasn't showed the, you know, form that he showed at us. And you know, I think that just shows again with a lot of our players, they perform so well in the system that we use, but when they move on, it doesn't work because it's not the same as how it is at us.
Definitely, mate. No, I think it just shows that I think we have such a character. We have a character as a club that we believe in what we do, and I think we recruit players to fit what we do. And I think not many clubs do that. I think a lot of clubs will panic buy, will do silly things and sign players that don't fit their club, but it's a name, and we don't do that. I go back to what I can't remember who said it earlier. Vitaly Janelt, who knew about him before? Henry probably will. He probably got him on Football Manager or something. But you know, who knew about Vitaly Janelt before? I didn't know a Scooby who he was. You know, he's come in and been exceptional. I thought, Jesus, you know, he's got big boots to fill in Norgards. He's been unbelievable. He's probably been, and I'm going to ask this question to you boys just to finish up. For me, he's probably been our player of the season. And I think he's, you know, if you're going to talk about what he does off the ball, but what he does on the ball, I mean, he's like a Rolls Royce. He just strolls around, you know, don't take no shit. For me, he's just been exceptional, and no one expected him to come in and do that well that soon. And I think, like you said, we don't expect that because we're not always going to sign a player who
household names,
and we're not always going to sign a player who's going to walk in and done what Tony's done. For me, I never expected Tony to do what he's done this season. I expected him to score goals because I believe that we sign goal scorers, but no one ever expected him to score the goals that he has this season. And you know, I think we signed players this season that have come in and have just hit the ground running. I mean, I suppose one is probably not Godos. He came in and, you know, would play that wide and probably wasn't his position. But look at him now. He's
getting better.
Yeah. I think going to Janelt as well. A big point with him is who can you not look past when you're scoring in a West London derby against QPR, you know? And to have that on your resume, him and Tony in their first season, their first West London derby, you're just like, wow. They instantly go to your heart, don't they? When you get that goal, whether it's against QPR, Fulham, look at the players that have done it before and the players that will do it in the future. You're like, yeah, they're settling in. They're a Brentford player. They're one of the greats already, you know. And yeah, I mean, he's been exceptional this season. There are a few others that I would put above him. One of which for me would be Rico Henry. I think the consistency that he shows is just unbelievable. And also the journey he's had at Brentford in terms of the injuries that he had when he was first here. You didn't get to watch Rico Henry as a player. You got glimpses of who he was, but played a few games, got injured, played injured. But look at him the last 2 seasons. How many games has he missed? And to have the amount of energy that he does to be a constant outlet for us is a vital cog in the machine. And yeah, I for me, he tips it so far as the player of the season. Obviously, you've got Tony up there with the 22 goals. That is just amazing for any striker to come to a club and score 22 goals in 27 games. But definitely Rico Henry is up there for me.
Hold it. We're going to go around. Henry, because we'll go back to this. When this is up, we'll then go back to it at the end of the season. Who's your player of the season so far? Or who would you, if you had to give it now, season finished now, who would you give it to?
I think the thing is that I know for a winner would be Ivan Toney, and I would want to give it to him. But just for me, just because obviously we've watched him for the last couple of seasons, and this season he's really stepped up. it's got to be Josh Da Silva. Just so, you know, when we've been on the back foot, he's been the one that's picked up the ball and got us forward and then given us that momentum back. And he's turned games for us. And I think, you know, you look at the unbeaten run, when we've won some of those games or even maybe drawn some of those games, he's been the one that's got the ball and driven us forward to get us into that attack. And yeah, he was brilliant last season. I think this season he's for me the best midfielder in the Championship.
Another just amazing work with our recruitment. Just, you know, to pick him up from Arsenal on a free was just unbelievable. Alen, player of the season. Come on, who would you pick? Who would it be?
I'll say Rico Henry. The reason why is because you know how earlier you were mentioning that our whole squad depth is so good this season that we've got backup players, yeah? Rico's so good, you don't need a backup for him. You know that every single game he's going to play well. Every single game he's going to put in a performance. And like Adlane was saying, Rico went on that run. I think it was last season, wasn't it? Where he literally played every single game last season.
Yeah.
And for me watching him and see you know how they say it in like lower leagues and stuff and like, well, in team sheets in general, he's literally the first name on the team sheet every single game for a fact.
Yes.
And what does that tell you? Like, it doesn't matter what manager you've got. It doesn't matter if you've got Thomas Frank, Pep Guardiola, Jose Mourinho. The fact is, if he's the first name on the team sheet, then that tells you something. That tells the manager that he's a good player. So for me, yeah. And obviously, I'm thinking more defensively again. And just like you said with Alen, it's because he does the simple things. And yeah, also, I haven't seen a faster player than him in any game. Literally, he beats any man on the ball every single time.
Yeah, in addition to that as well, is you look at these top Premier League managers and they're complaining about the matches are coming too thick and fast. They don't have the 5 substitutions, this, that. But again, you look at Rico Henry, back end of last season, he played every single game. Coming into this season, he's played almost every single game. And you're like, you sort of look at it and you're like, that's just an excuse, because if you had 11 Rico Henrys in your team with the fitness and the desire and the work rate that he shows, you can't have that excuse, because there is just no excuse there. The guy is a machine. He's just, it's so amazing to see how far he has come from them injuries till now, playing what I see it as one continuous season. There was 4 or 5 weeks off between the playoff final and when we came back. And for me, it's just been one long continuous season which Rico Henry has been there for the whole of it, and it's just amazing. So yeah, Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, stop complaining about these substitutes and all that. Just grab yourself a Rico Henry.
And Gareth Southgate, stick Rico Henry in that England team as well.
I will say quite a quick one. I loved Henry's little smirk though when Adlane said, "We'll have 11 Rico Henrys." I know he thought we'll all have a team of Marcus Beans. I know that song popped in his head.
How can you not think of that song?
I know it did.
But what about you, James? Then who's your player of the season?
You've all said a great few. For me, I think again, I look at the journey he's been on, and I'm going to say at the start of the season, I said he's got to go. He's not cut out for the Championship, but if he continues the form that he's on, it's got to be Sergi, man. I think for me, I would pick.
Understood.
Only reason I would pick him because he loves the club. He does. He loves. And I know I said earlier that you don't get many teams that have players that love the club, but I think he does. Like he loves Brentford with all of his heart, and I think he's found so much confidence, and he's picked up performances, and he's a player that, all right, he might want 4 or 5 chances to score, but you trust him to perform now, and I think he's a confidence player. And a lot of footballers are confidence players, but for me, Sergi's been, all right. I said at the start of the season, he's got to go. Let him. He's no good. He's too bob. But for me now, he's picked himself up so much. I think for me, that's who I would pick. And I'm not just saying it because you boys have picked one each, and I don't want to pick the same. Just for me,
no.
I think what Henry said earlier, Tony looks like he's going to get it. Let's have it right.
They always do as well, the attackers.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I just think he's picked himself up and he's dusted himself off so much. You know, there's a lot of things at the moment going around about, like, you know, the abuse that a lot of people are getting online and stuff like that. That wasn't spoken about at the start of the season because it wasn't a big thing. But looking at some of the abuse that was flying about towards him, you know, Canos is this, Canos is that, he shouldn't play for Brentford again. Look what he's done. He ain't moaned about it. He ain't said, I'm not sort of, I'm not happy, blah, blah, blah. He wanted to improve. He wanted to build his confidence. And he wanted to show what he can do. And I think he has shown what he can do.
That's the thing is, you talked about it, that it's extremely likely that it's going to go to Ivan Toney, and it always goes to the attackers. But you look at other players, Henrik Dalsgaard, who's been immense this season, Ethan Pinnock, who's, again, just carried on since from last season. And them players are going to sort of be overlooked. Even Sorensen coming in, I always saw him, watching him in real life and seeing him, I didn't know what we saw in him. But how he's performed recently, you're like, wow, this guy is a very good player. And whether that's because he has Pinnock next to him, who has been immense, or that's just what Brentford have done to him and made him into that player, is amazing. And like we said, these guys are all going to be overlooked, and it's the hardest thing. You've got big saves from David Raya. You've got the leader in Henrik Dalsgaard, and then the giant in Ethan Pinnock that wins everything in the air. And it's just, it's an amazing squad to have at the moment.
Definitely.
And
Henry just popped off for a half-time piss, I guess.
Oh yeah, it has to be done.
40 was that the 43rd minute, lads? Oh, come on, let's go and get a beer.
Yeah,
boys, pleasure. It's been brilliant. First episode. My son,
Yeah, man.
come on. Daily talk.
Woo.
Kicking off
Tomorrow night. Let's get a little quick prediction. Tomorrow night. How are we going to get on? I don't like doing predictions.
I hate it.
I'm not taking part. I'm not taking part.
We won't do it. Boys, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Good seeing
Lady
you.
Talks, episode 1. There it was. Signing out. Video should be up soon. Like, subscribe, get all of that. I hate saying all that nonsense. But cheers, boys. I'll put all the Twitters and that in the bio, in the description. Thanks a lot, and see you soon.
Cheers.
See you later.
Take care, man. See you soon, mate.